Okay, everybody, welcome. Come on in. How's everybody feeling? Everybody good? Feeling fully energized, alert, ready to go? Back straight? Ready to take it all in? Because we're talking about important stuff today. Actually, we're just continuing from yesterday, which was important stuff. But who did we introduce yesterday? Vyasadeva, right? Okay. We have another picture of him up here today. He looks a little sad. Right? You notice that? Let me zoom in on him. It's a little bit sad, right? The question is, after giving so much, why did the great sage Vyasadeva feel incomplete? Now, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm just foreshadowing here for everyone, okay? That there's going to be a reason that after compiling, what text did we talk about yesterday that he compiled? Anyone? Just shout it on out. The four Vedas, and they also include a very important subdivision called the Upanishads. And then after that, he went on to create another work, Vedanta Sutras, sometimes known as Brahma Sutras. Okay, very good. All right. Well, hold on. We'll get there. So he will go on to write more texts, and we're going to talk about the other texts that he writes today. And after completing such a monumentous work, he'll feel a little sad, right? Something's not right. And that's going to become a really important thing. You can't imagine how important. All right? Are you with me? Do you find that idea intriguing? Has it left a bit of a mark in your thoughts? And boy, I need to know that. I need to find that out. Are you feeling like that? Yes? Everybody? Okay, because that's going to be real important. I want this to be memorable. Okay, so and I want to share a couple things. So here's the list of the texts that Vyasadeva compiled, and we've covered the first two, the Vedas, which include the Upanishads down here, you see, and then the Vedanta Sutra. So there's 20,000 verses in all the Vedas and the Upanishads, 108 Upanishads, 108 books. Some of them are quite short, but some of them are relatively lengthy. And then he does the Vedanta Sutra, where he summarizes the teachings of the Upanishads, right? And it's in 555 aphorisms, 555 short little sutras, little compact statements. Now we're going to talk about the rest of the literature that he's going to write. I also want to foreshadow something, because it can't help but come up as we discuss these things. But these texts fall into three different categories, and they're called karma kanda. Kanda means a division, or section, if you want. So there's the action division. I'm not going to go into this too much, but let's just share this. Instructions for virtuous action and its rewards. And this includes the Vedas, minus the Upanishads, right? We talked about that yesterday. And the Jnana Kanda section of his works, the knowledge division, these are teachings on self-knowledge and inner detachment. And it includes the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra. Okay. Jnana Kanda, Jnana section. And then there's going to be a Bhakti Kanda section, and we're going to talk about that today. The love division, you could call it. And this reveals divine love as life's ultimate goal, and it'll include the text, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Srimad Bhagavatam, among others. But I wanted to highlight those. So we're going to begin, as once we completely lay out all of his works, we're going to talk about these different divisions. But these divisions may come up a bit even as we kind of lay them out. Is that clear? Everybody okay with that? Yes. Questions, anybody? Relatively clear for now. And I also want to share this. We touched on this yesterday. The Prasthana Trayi, the three of these texts are taken from the broader texts, and they're highlighted and commented on by powerful philosophers. And through and this is called the tradition of Vedanta, right? Sometimes the Upanishads themselves are called Vedanta because they come at the end of the Vedas, Veda Anta. Anta means the end. And so Vedanta sometimes is used to refer to the Upanishads. Of course, the Vedanta Sutras are a compressed form of the Upanishads, And it is also said that the Bhagavad Gita encapsulates the teachings of the Upanishads as well. So those three texts are, if you, let's say that our friend Sanatan here said, I want to establish a lineage of Vedanta. But what he would have to do is he would have to write some very compelling commentaries on these three bodies of texts. And he would then say, I appreciate what these previous commentators have said as far as this is concerned and as far as this is concerned. But I feel where they were incomplete or what they misunderstood is the following. And I'm going to show you that by quoting directly from these texts and showing how what they've presented is incorrect. And now I want to correct that. And then that his particular vision might be given a name, something like Sanatan Dvaita or something like that. And then that would become known, and he would have disciples, students that he would teach, and they would carry this lineage forward, and they would look towards his text as authoritative, the authoritative understanding on Vedanta. So that happens through commenting on these three texts. Shankara was the original one to come through with powerful commentaries on them. Ramanuja later came and responded. Madhva later. Others came later, and so on. Okay, so they take from within the broader text. They take these three texts in particular, and they establish their lineages of Vedanta. That clear? Questions about that? Okay. It's all going to be on the test, so make sure you know that. You didn't know there was going to be a test? Of course. Okay. So let's go back here. And I was reading from something that I've been working on, and I think I'll continue to do that today. We've read about the Vedas. We've read about Vedanta Sutra. And now we're going to read. Well, let me ask you a question. Oh, that's not where I want to be. Let me ask you all a question. I've asked this before, so I'm expecting that you're all going to immediately know this and get it right. Who was the real audience? Who were the people that were reading the four Vedas? Let's say minus the Upanishads. Who took interest in these texts in particular?
The Brahmanas.
The Brahmanas, the priests, right? What was their job especially? To perform rituals, exactly, right? You go to the priest. When I was a kid, I was brought up Catholic, and we always had our priests, and we'd go to mass, and the priest would give a lecture, and then the priest would do a ritual, right? I never really kind of put together, priest means people that do the rituals, right? But the whole mass was based on this ritual. You go there for this ritual, that they take this bread or this wafer and this wine, and through the ritual that it becomes the body of Christ, and you ingest that. It never really was explained to me, or it didn't even quite click in my mind. Oh, that's what priests are, people that do rituals. I thought them more as people that lecture, and certainly the Brahmanas do that as well. But in this, especially from this Vedic viewpoint, there are rituals that need to be done to connect us as a way of here's authorized ways to express yourself to the devas, and I will help you do that through this particular ritual that I've been trained to do through my understanding. I've bothered to learn Sanskrit and learn these rituals to pronounce the mantras precisely, etc., so that we can do this ritual effectively. That's what these priests were doing. So the early Vedas were important to and read by the Brahmanas. Now, who was reading the Upanishads? Who were they relevant to? Oh, I thought you were all just going to immediately shout this out.
The householders.
Yes. Huh? Householders were more interested in the Vedas. Actually, quite the opposite. Yeah, quite the opposite. The renunciates, the sannyasis, the people that were ready to walk away from home. They don't need to do rituals anymore because they don't have a home to take care of. They don't have a family to take care of. They don't have a business that needs to be blessed so that it'll do well. They don't have any of these things. They're not interested in the external things anymore. What are they interested in doing? Going within. Yeah, going within. Right? So they're walking away from this world, and these teachings are giving them clear discernment to say, yeah, this is of the illusory realm. I want to walk away from the illusory realm, go deep within myself. So if you take the priests and you take, excuse me, if you take the priest and you take the renunciates, very small portion of society, is it not? Very small, right? But what about everybody else? Vyas is thinking, I gotta reach further. I need to supply more. I need to supply this information in ways that everybody can benefit from it. So let me read a little something here. Vyasadeva had already offered guidance for living well in this world through the Vedas and for transcending it through the Upanishads, which he summarized in the Vedanta Sutras. One might think his work was done. Yet his compassion moved him to continue. He realized that although these texts were flawless, they were largely inaccessible. Only an elite group of priests were trained to understand the Vedas with their complex rituals and precise intonation. And the Stoic teachings of the Upanishads appealed mostly to the rare contemplative souls who had developed an intense longing to renounce material comforts and pleasures for a life of asceticism. There was a need for texts that could speak to a broader audience, beyond the priests and renunciates. Driven by a compassionate desire to make this life-giving wisdom accessible to all, Vyasadeva began composing a wider range of works. Okay? And that's where we get to some really interesting books, some really fun books to read. And these are books that have really changed the face of India and its history and its spiritual tradition. So let's go now to the Mahabharata. Vyasadev's great epic, the Mahabharata, is widely accepted as the longest poem ever written. At 1.8 million words, it is roughly 10 times the length of the Iliad and the Odyssey combined. This is a huge work, right? Talk about epic, right? People speak of the Iliad and the Odyssey as great epics. This text is 10 times the size of the two of them combined. Mahabharata can be translated as the great story of the descendants of King Bharat. The text spans multiple generations and is so vast that even its subplots could fill the length of modern novels. Yet its central narrative tells of the conflict between two groups of cousins, each with a claim to the throne: the noble Pandavas and the evil Kauravas. Questions of righteous conduct are explored through the trials of his characters. So now we got a big story, right? Upanishads didn't read like this, right? The Upanishads are captivating to people that have a taste for philosophy. But these are stories for people that just have a taste for drama, which is practically everyone. At its heart lies 700 verses known as the Bhagavad Gita, literally the Song of God. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between the Pandava warrior Arjuna and his dear friend Lord Krishna. Moments before the climactic Kurukshetra war, Arjuna drops his bow and confesses his inability to fight against an army composed of his own kinsmen and revered teachers. Krishna urges Arjuna to embrace his duty as a warrior, but to do so from an entirely spiritual state of consciousness. Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita serve as a comparative study of the diverse beliefs and practices that later came to be grouped under the term Hinduism. Okay, so there's a lot said in the Vedas, there's a lot said in the Upanishads about different dharmas, about different teachings and how to apply them in life, about different spiritual practices and how to apply them, how to make sense of it. The Bhagavad Gita is going to come along and say, let's lay them all out, let's look at them all, let's see that they're all valid, but also let's try to churn this and make the most sense of it and see what's the most practical, as well as what leads to the highest goal, That's Bhagavad Gita. Welcome, Maharaj. Always wonderful to have you here. Does that make sense? So you had these texts that were not easy for people to read, and Vyas says, "I'm going to make something that's really easy to read and fun to read, and everyone will tell these stories." And you had a broad range of texts with all kinds of practices in them, some more materialistic, some more spiritual, all dharmic. And in the right in the heart of this text, Bhagavad Gita comes up in the Mahabharata at the most crucial moment. If you're watching a movie, it's like right when the hero is about to like take care of business, right? After years of waiting, and really deal with the real villains. So you've been waiting for this moment. You've been waiting for it, and Arjuna is so heroic that he's ready for this, and he's so good, and you're so ready for him to take out all of these evil people that mistreated his wife so badly, that tried to kill his family, that were so rotten. He's finally going to take care of it. So you're like, yes, this is it. We're building, and then he falls apart right on the battlefield, right? Something he'd never done before. And then he turns to Krishna, and he's, in a sense, he's saying, I'm hopeless here. I don't know what to do. I need your help. You please be my guru. You please explain all of this to me. And Krishna speaks within the Vedic context, he's drawing from Vedic teachings, Upanishadic teachings, comparing them, asking Arjuna hey, Arjuna, sometimes it sounds like you're talking to me from the point of view of the Vedas, which are concerned with materialistic goals. You should know better than that. You should know that there's something higher than that, right? So sometimes he's actually putting the Vedas down a little bit. You're not on those steps are good for people that are at a much lower level than you. It's a step up for them, but Arjuna, it's a step down for you to start being concerned with material circumstances and so on. You should step higher. You should have knowledge. You should have detachment. That's a very Upanishadic idea. But Krishna is going to show him more in Bhagavad Gita, and I'll speak about that here too. Questions so far? Does it make sense? How many? Yes, in the back, Prabhu. Let's get the microphone back there.
Prabhu, 1.8 million verses. Do we have access to that? The whole Mahabharata?
I'm sorry?
The 1.8 million verses of the Mahabharata. Do we have access to that?
1.8 million words.
Words.
100,000 verses. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, let's continue reading. I'll repeat. Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita serve as a comparative study of the diverse beliefs and practices that later came to be grouped under the term Hinduism. The knowledge of the Upanishads is echoed and expanded upon, exploring the difference between the body and the self, the transmigration of the soul through many lifetimes, and the powerful influences of time, karma, and the modes of material nature. All of that Upanishadic knowledge is in the Gita, but in easier to understand ways and clearer language, right? The Vedic principle of performing one's duty, right? This is what the Vedas teach. The Vedic principle of performing one's duty is affirmed, but integrated with an Upanishadic sense of detachment. One must fulfill one's social duties, that's the Vedic idea, while letting go of any desire for material reward. That's an Upanishadic idea. Krishna's combining them both. Arjuna is thinking, well, either you do the Vedic thing, you work in this world and you do your duty, or you do the Upanishadic thing, you become a yogi and you walk away from the world. And Bhagavad Gita is saying, no, you actually do both. You work in this world and you're dutiful, as the Vedas teach, but you do it with the knowledge and detachment of the Upanishadic sage. Right? It's a whole new idea. The Bhagavad Gita rose to eclipse Vyasadeva's earlier works in popularity because it offered a practical path to inner contemplation and detachment without requiring one to abandon home, family, or occupation. Rather than a forest or secluded mountain cave, the world of one's own social responsibilities could now serve as the field of contemplation. Through action infused with knowledge of the self and free from personal motivation, a householder could achieve the same goals as a renounced monk. Everyone got that? Right? Before it's like, oh, I can be a dutiful householder and cultivate good karma through the teachings of the Vedas. And that's what pretty much all of us try to do. Right? But then there's some people, especially when they grow older, and they want to leave it all behind and become a wanderer and a yogi. Okay, that's another possibility. You could do that. But can I actually get all the wisdom and the attachment and the freedom that the wandering yogi gets, even while I have a family, while I have a home, while I have a business to take care of? Bhagavad Gita says, yes, you can do that. If you're a mother, you can do it. If you're a father, you can do it. Right? If you're a business person or whatever it is that you do, even a warrior can be a yogi. That is a huge thing, and that opens up the world of this practice to everyone. That's a huge thing. And that's why there's Vyasadev's vast literature, and then beyond that, there's so much literature that grows out of that in the history of the spirituality as it comes down in India. But there's no book comes close in terms of its popularity, in terms of its application, in terms of its memorization, in terms of it being alive in this culture. No other text comes close to the Bhagavad Gita, right? So, and everything is in there. It's compressed, but everything is in there, teaching you from the lowest to the highest, how a human being can evolve. Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Pretentious symbols of renunciation are dismissed in the Bhagavad Gita, while the internal state of a yogi is glorified in clear and simple terms. The ideal, now listen to this here. This is what the Gita teaches. The ideal sage remains even-minded amid life's constant changes, sees the spiritual equality in all living beings, despite differences in body or status, and lets go of seeking happiness through externals, realizing the ever-present joy that lies within the self. Right? Those three things are called samatvam, keeping an even mind no matter how things are changing externally. Samadarshana, seeing the equality of every living being despite the different bodies and circumstances that they're in. And antasukha, realizing that my happiness is something internal. It's not dependent on anything external. The Gita teaches this again and again and again to Arjuna. This is what the Upanishadic sage can hope to get by wandering away. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you can get it right here, even living as a warrior, what to speak of any other occupation. But the Bhagavad Gita is going to go still further. It's going to take things that were more hidden in the Upanishads and bring them to the forefront. And what is that? Can anyone guess exactly what that is? It's there in the Upanishads, but it's a little bit more hidden. It comes out sometimes, but it's not emphasized as the most important thing. Yes?
Relationship?
Okay, well, relationship, but what type of relationship? A loving relationship, right? Yeah, devotion, bhakti, right? Bhakti was there in the Vedas. Bhakti was there in the Upanishads. It's definitely there, but it's not brought to the forefront. Bhagavad Gita is going to bring devotion to the forefront. And it's going to be, yes, Arjuna, be a yogi. And what is the greatest yogi? Yoginam api sarvesham, amongst all the different varieties of yogis. Madgaten antar atmana, one who's always abiding me deep within their self, right? Shadavan, with great faith. Bhajate yomam, worshiping me. Same yukta tamo mataha. This is the yogi that's most connected through yoga, right? Bhagavad Gita is going to be explicit about this. It's going to be very clear about this. It's going to make it easy, make something that was hidden and hard to understand really explicit and clear in Bhagavad Gita. And this Bhagavad Gita, of course, again, is part of what text? Mahabharata. Mahabharata is in a category text called Itihasa. And these are the ideas that the Itihasas and the Puranas, the next text that we're talking about, they're the same truths as the Upanishads and the Vedas, but they help us understand them. It's even said that we can't understand them without the help of the Itihasas and the Puranas. So Bhagavad Gita is the book that makes all those earlier texts clear and easy to understand. It puts it in simpler, clearer language, not so cryptic, right? Would you like me to share an example of how cryptic the Upanishads could be?
Yes.
I think I have it here. Yeah, I had it here. This is a famous verse from the Upanishads. Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam. Purnat Purnam Udachite. Purnasya Purnam Adaya. Purnam Eva Vashishyate. This is the translation. Purna means whole, right? That is whole. This is whole. From that wholeness comes this wholeness. If you take away this wholeness from that wholeness, only wholeness remains. Okay? So it's incredibly profound, but you need someone to explain it to you. What exactly are you talking about? You know? That's how but Bhagavad Gita doesn't speak in these kind of cryptic ways. Bhagavad Gita speaks very directly, you know? Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskru, you know, always think of me, worship me. It's like very direct instructions. So Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas, which we'll get to later, are making these Upanishadic teachings simpler to understand. And what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita is he uses the same words, the same language from the Upanishads so you can see the connections. You know, in the Upanishads, it'll talk about the absolute, the everlasting, the never ending. And Krishna's going to say, I'm the absolute, I'm the everlasting, I am that Brahman. He uses the exact same language so you can put it all together. Oh, I didn't know what you were speaking about back in the Upanishads. Now I see that you, this person, are that avyayam, that which never, etc. So he uses the Upanishadic language and he clarifies, I am that absolute truth. Arjuna turns to Krishna, Padam Brahma, you are the supreme Brahman. Padam Dhamma, you are the ultimate abode. Pavitram Paramam, you know, you are the ultimate purifier. All of those things that are said in the Vedas, that's you. Now I understand it. Now I make the connection, right? So Bhagavad Gita is going to make things so much more clear and easy to understand. And now in this last paragraph that I have here, it speaks to that. Various paths of yoga are validated in the Bhagavad Gita, with the path of bhakti openly glorified for the first time as the most direct and as the culmination of all the others. It is as if, through churning the message of the Vedas and Upanishads, the essence of divine love rises to the top, and it is presented as life's highest principle and the ultimate goal of yoga. Right? Was it Shankara who said, it's a common phrase, I think it may have been Shankara who wrote, that the Upanishads are like the cow, and that Krishna is like milking the cow, and the Bhagavad Gita is the milk, and Arjuna is the calf, like that, something like that, right? So Krishna has taken the essence, right? Like milk is the essence coming through the cow, right? He's taken the essence of these earlier texts, and then he's presenting it for Arjuna to consume. You know. All right. Yes, Atmaviti.
How many years did it take Vyasadeva to write all of this literature? And what is the space between the Mahabharata and the Puranas versus the Vedas and the Upanishads?
I really don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if anyone can say exactly. The sequence is listed. Mm-hmm. And scholars give all kind of speculations. You know, scholars always do these things that to me, I'm like, come on. You know, like they'll say, well, this text is written in a different style than this text, so it's obviously done by a different author. You know, I say, what are you talking about? You know, that's like saying Meet the Beatles must have been done by a different band than like Abbey Road. You know, it's the same band. It's just like they mature in certain ways and start to share, you know, in different ways. And so the Vedas are different than the Mahabharata, which is different from the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's all coming through one. So I don't know the exact time span, but what we do know is the sequence. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Mahabharata? Yes.
What you're reading from there, where is this from?
This is my own writings.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. Very important. Bhagavad Gita, foundational. Right? For yogi must know Bhagavad Gita. Vedantin must know Bhagavad Gita. There's just no question about it. And if you and here's a recommendation. Are you all ready for a recommendation? Yes. Eager?
Eager.
You think I might have something worth saying that might be able to help you? Okay, then please trust me when I say this. If you decide, let me bring a new discipline into my life, a simple one that won't take too much time, but one that is guaranteed to enrich my life in a powerful way. If you just read Bhagavad Gita every day, just make it part of what you do. I bathe every day, I eat every day, I sleep every day, I read Bhagavad Gita every day. My day is not complete without reading some Bhagavad Gita. I have many friends that read one chapter a day. Most chapters are relatively short. It might take 15 minutes or so, right? If you just read the verses. Um, uh, some people will read like for 15 minutes a day, however you like to do it. If you read Bhagavad Gita every day, I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying I know it will have a profound effect on your life. And if you do that for a year or so, you'll be saying, what was I doing? Not doing this, right? The greatest knowledge that is floating through the ether in the universe has been carefully taken and handed to us in an easily digestible and easily understandable way. And I'm neglecting that. And what am I doing for 15 minutes every day? I'm scrolling like this on my phone, which is complete, utter, useless junk food for the mind, when I could be spending that same time, even a little bit of time. And what'll happen is if you do it for 15 minutes every day, you're going to start to want to do it more. And then that your life really starts to transform. That makes sense? So I'm not going to ask you to make a vow right here and now. But I will ask you to please really consider this. It's a real game changer. And also, if you talk to Gabriella afterward, I've done several studies on the Gita. In last September, I did 31 days going through the entire Gita from beginning to end. It can help you just walk right through it. If you want to follow that, you can follow the reading, and in 1 month, you can read the entire Gita, and I take you right along through it. And I've done other studies of the Gita. I've done 2 since then, one in November and one in January. So there's a lot out there to help if you want to read through it. But there's nothing like Bhagavad Gita. It's such an important book, right? Okay. Now the Puranas. The Puranas, stories that shaped India's devotion. The word Purana means very old or ancient and refers to a vast collection of traditional stories. Vyasadeva composed 18 major Puranas, totaling about 400,000 verses. The Puranas recount the powers and pastimes of the gods and goddesses. All that we see about the gods and the goddesses, the majority of it's coming from the Puranas. Right? It's there in Mahabharata, it's there in Ramayana, and it's there in the Vedas, but not like, it's more like worship this god in this way. And it does tell some stories, but not like the Puranas. The Puranas are huge, right? 400,000 verses. And it's just really laying out all the stories of, well, it's not just, I'll read this, you'll see. The Puranas recount the powers and pastimes of the gods and goddesses. India's vibrant devotional culture in its temples and arts is rooted especially in the stories of the Puranas. Countless practices have developed from the Puranas, including meditations, vows, prayers, duties, customs, and ceremonies. The Puranas describe a vast cosmos, layered planetary systems with their varied forms of life, cycles of universal creation and destruction, multiple universes, and even a spiritual sky with planets beyond the material world. Much of the Purana's narration is devoted to the genealogies of kings, sages, and demigods, along with vivid accounts of the struggles between the benevolent gods, the Devas, and the tyrannical demons, the Asuras. Through these stories, Vyasadeva was able to convey profound truths in a way that captured the minds of both scholars and everyday people alike. The 18 Puranas present themselves as divided into 3 sets of 6, corresponding to the 3 modes of material nature: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Among all 18 Puranas, the Bhagavad Purana is by far the most celebrated and influential. It is said to be the mature fruit of all Vedic literature, literally the cream of Vyasadeva's works. Okay, so that's something that's going to be real important, and that's going to connect to what the first slide that I had up there that we spoke about first. What did that first slide, what question did it ask? Why was Vyasadeva feeling incomplete after writing so many wonderful texts full of so much information about how to live a better life, about even how to transcend this world, revealing so much that's beyond what our senses can perceive. He took it all down and gave it to humanity. What a wonderful gift. And he's sitting there saying, like, oh, something's not right. Something's not right. Okay? That's going to be revealed in this book, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so that book is called the Bhagavad Purana, but it's also so special. This book is, amongst all the Puranas, the great commentators have had many, many, many commentaries on Bhagavad Purana, very few on the others. If you just walk down the street in India, you're going to see Bhagavad Purana just come to life. You're going to see it in the art. You're going to see it in the worship that people do. You're going to see it even in people's names. You know, Mahatma Gandhi. What is his real name? It's not Mahatma. Mahatma is like a title. What's his name? Mohandas, right? Yeah, yeah. Mohan is named for who? Krishna. Bhagavad Purana gives Krishna's whole life, right? So it's such a beautiful book, and not only is it special for the information that it shares, but in the way that it shares that information. It's his greatest poetry. It's his most beautiful work, and therefore, I'll read this again. Because it is so cherished for its poetic beauty and illuminating exposition of divine love, the Bhagavad Purana is widely known as the Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful narrations of the Supreme Lord. Right? That book is going to become very important in our discussions as we go forward. It's not an ordinary book. One, because it is the most beautiful. Two, because it reveals the most beautiful and secret things, and connects one. It goes right to the deepest heart and expounds on love and divine love as the highest principle. But also because it's a book written specifically by Vyasadeva to clarify all misunderstandings in the previous works. And that's going to have something to do with why he was feeling incomplete or despondent. We're going to get there. And I'll share one thing with you too that's super significant. Are you ready for this? Yes? I want everyone to remember this. So I'm framing it out. We spoke earlier today and yesterday about how these different lineages that interpret Vedanta in different ways, they have their different explanations. And when you get to the Vedas or the Puranas, it seems like there's so many gods and goddesses. How do I know which one to approach? Or do I approach them all? Or do I just choose the one I like the most? Or how does all of this work? All of these questions will become addressed by Vyasadeva himself, particularly understanding how to understand Vedanta. Because you have these different commentators writing on it, and they have different ideas. But if you have a text, and you have different people reading that text and commenting on the text and disagreeing and debating about the meaning of that text, sometimes it can be so hard to understand who's right and who's wrong. Yes? But there's one way to know. There's one sure way to know. How is that? If we could only ask the author, right? The author can tell us clearly. So Vyasadeva saw this. He saw that people are debating his books. He saw that people are confused about where it all leads. And so he himself decided, I'm going to clarify this. And so this Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam is not only a new and beautiful and wonderful, poetic, glorious spiritual work, but it's his own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. It's his own effort. Like there's been many great commentators, but they're disagreeing with. I'll write my own commentary. And therefore it becomes the greatest authoritative work in Vedanta, Srimad Bhagavatam. Very significant. Okay, we're going to talk more about that as we go. Questions? Everybody following along? Is it okay? I'm hoping that things you've heard and seen but haven't been able to kind of click into place are starting to take shape. Let me read something more. Oh, here we go. You ready? We're going to answer the question now. After giving so much, why did the great sage feel incomplete? Let's pause for a moment to appreciate the superhuman literary contribution of Vyasadeva. Anticipating the challenges of the dark age of Kali and entrusted with preserving the timeless knowledge of the Veda, he compiled and composed an immense body of works, ranging from the ritual hymns of the Vedas to the profound insights of the Upanishads, the systematic Vedanta Sutras, the epic Mahabharata with its Bhagavad Gita, and the vast Puranas filled with sacred histories and teachings. Altogether, his writings amount to more than 520,000 verses, mantras, and sutras, an achievement unparalleled in scope, artistry, and spiritual intent. Maybe that's meant to say content. One might expect that such a sage, having fulfilled his sacred duty, would feel profound satisfaction. Yet Vyasadeva himself writes of a lingering sense of incompleteness that surprised him. And this is what he wrote. He wrote, "I've been strict in my vows as a yogi. With a sincere heart, I have shown deep respect for the Veda, honored my teachers, and performed all the appropriate rituals. I have lived honestly and truthfully, and through the Mahabharata, I have extended the knowledge of the Veda and the path of Dharma to every segment of society, even to those who have never been granted access to it before. And yet still, this feeling of dissatisfaction remains. I feel somehow incomplete." All right? He writes this in his own book, the Srimad Bhagavatam. It comes early in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's revealing to the audience why he wrote this book, what he was feeling, and how this book was an answer to what he was feeling. This is an amazing thing, right? There's this film. Maybe some of you have seen it. It was called Annie Hall. Who has seen Annie Hall? Okay, a few of us, only a few. It's a film by Woody Allen. And he plays a character kind of like himself, a neurotic New Yorker. And he's waiting in line to see a film, an avant-garde film with his girlfriend. And behind him in line is another man with his date, and he's describing the writer of the film, and writer and director of the film, and his works and his interpretation of them. And Woody Allen is hearing this conversation. He's becoming all disturbed by it. And his girlfriend's like, "What's the matter?" And he's like saying, "This guy doesn't understand what he's talking about. He's such a fool. He's misinterpreting everything." And his girlfriend's saying, "Well, it's okay. It's no big deal. Just calm down." And then the guy keeps talking. And Woody Allen's still getting more upset. And he keeps talking. And he just can't take it anymore. And so he turns around and says, "I'm sorry, but you don't understand this at all. You've misinterpreted everything. You're clueless." And then the man turns to him and says, "Well, I'll have you know that I'm a professor, of whatever, it's cinematography or screenplays, or at Columbia University. And and my PhD was actually done on the works of this director. So I think I'm quite qualified to comment on what his intentions were and what his message was through his works." And Woody Allen's not hearing any of it, and they're going back and forth. And so then finally Woody Allen steps out of the frame of the camera, and he comes back in, and he has someone with him. And he says, here he is. Here's the director himself. Tell him. And the director says, "You're a fool. You don't understand anything that I've written. You've totally misinterpreted it. I can't believe you've gone so far in your misinterpretation of my works." And then Woody Allen turns to the camera and says, "If only life could be like this, right? We debate and we debate, but we never get to the conclusion, right?" And so this is what Srimad Bhagavatam is. There's a whole history of debate that comes down over centuries, right? And that he's anticipating will come down. And he's saying, "I'm going to answer it myself. I'm going to write my own commentary." And that's going to be Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So he's sitting here feeling this kind of incompleteness, even though he's written all this. It has to do with people not understanding, because his work is so vast, and this is going to become important, and because he's speaking to people on different levels, right? So he said all that, I've been strict in my vows, I've done this, I've done that, and still I'm feeling incomplete. One might think that by writing so extensively, Vyasadeva had left nothing uncovered. So why the lingering sense of incompleteness? Ironically, it was the very size and variety of his works that became an issue. In meeting people where they're at and leaving room for many approaches, he left the highest aim less sharply defined. Shall I repeat that?
Yes.
This is key. This is real important. If I can find it again. Here we go. Okay. Ironically, it was the very size and variety of his works that became an issue. In meeting people where they're at, right? If you're materialistic and you want the things of this world, I'm going to write the Vedas for you. If you're tired of materialism and feel that it's empty, I'm going to write the Upanishads for you. If even the peace of moksha has begun to feel empty for you, I'm going to write the Srimad Bhagavatam for you, so you can understand bhakti, divine love, right? So again, in meeting people where they were at and leaving room for many approaches, he left the highest aim less sharply defined. To better understand this, it helps to consider some broad differences between Eastern and Western ways of thinking. We're going to discuss this tomorrow. Eastern enlightenment, Western salvation, contrasting spiritual perspectives. Okay? We expect a book, because many of us, particularly those who've been raised in the Abrahamic traditions, the traditions of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, we're used to teachings coming down in a particular way. This is God, everything else is not God, right? Accept God and you're saved, reject God and you're condemned to hell forever, like that. Make your choice, you have one lifetime to do it, you better make it quick, otherwise you're eternally finished, right? It's a kind of a simplistic approach. The Eastern approach is far more nuanced. It's like, where are you at? If you're on this stage, we're going to give you something that's going to encourage you, right? It's good. And when we give it to you, we're going to make it sound like it's the best possible thing you can do. If you read the Vedas, it's going to sound like the best possible thing you can do in life is worship this God on Monday and this God on Tuesday and this other goddess on Wednesday and so on, and receive all the material benefits to have a happy life and a happy home and a happy society. It's going to sing the praises of that life to you in such a way that you could easily become convinced that this is the best way to live, and these are the highest teachings there are. And if at a certain point you've grown tired of that and felt an emptiness in that, then the Upanishads are going to speak to you in a way that it sounds like walking away from the things of this world, leaving all those rituals behind, cultivating an inner spiritual contemplation and feeling your own eternal nature inside is the best possible thing you can do. It's the ultimate. Leave all the rest of that behind and find moksha, It's the most glorious thing you can do. It's going to speak like that. It's going to encourage you, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, some people worship the demigods for the things of this world, but they don't understand that they're all being supplied by me. He says they're doing this worship avidi purvakam without a clear understanding of how to do it. But he says, if that's what they want, I'm in their heart, and I'll encourage them in that faith, right? He's not saying I'm a jealous God and they worship the wrong God, and now he's like saying they're taking a step forward by recognizing that all the things that they receive in this life are coming from a higher power, that they're gifts. That by just understanding that, they're making advancement. I'll encourage that, right? And then another point, when they're a little tired of that, I'll speak to them in the heart again and encourage them to take the next step. And then when they've grown a little tired of that, I'll encourage them to take the next step, all the way up to bhakti. But what he's going to do in Bhagavad Gita, what Vyasadeva will do in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is show us that bhakti, right? And say, you can adopt this now. You can jump right to the most beautiful conclusion. It'll be the fastest way. It'll be the easiest way for the complete satisfaction of the self, the complete blossoming, the complete evolution of the self in bhakti. So tomorrow we'll come back and we'll compare the Eastern and Western thoughts and visit Vyasadeva some more. Thank you all so very much. been wonderful spending this time with you. You're very kind. If you would, thank you. If you would like to get more of these classes, earlier classes or later classes, please speak to Gabrielle. She'll be right outside. And I need to get off the stage because Kirtan's happening. Please stick around for Kirtan too. Hari Om Tat Sat.